You say what you want to say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I want to see you be brave with what you want to.
Are we good to go? Great. Hey everyone, good to see you. Thank you for being with us today. My name is Erica Lucas. I am the founder of Stitch Grew Invest. And really short, my mission, I think in life and with both organizations is to build a more equitable economy through entrepreneurship, but also by putting more women in positions of power and influence unapologetically. So I am excited to be here. I am excited that you decided to take the leap and trust us with just spending an hour with us to talk about putting more women in public boards. And really quickly, I'd just like to say that I'm delighted to be partnering with United We, who has experience in putting more women in public boards and commissions. So with that, I am going to turn it over to our partners at United We so they can talk a little bit more about the training and what they do.
Thank you so much, Erica. Hi, everybody. My name is Angie Hare. I'm the Chief Development Officer for United We. We're so glad to have you here today. And Erica, just thank you for your leadership to VEST and to you. And I also want to thank the City of Oklahoma City. We have Steve Hill joining us today, so thank you, Steve. Just real quick, if we could just make sure everybody stays muted for the first part of our presentation, we would greatly appreciate that. And there will be time for question and answers at the end, so we can make sure you unmute at that point. And then we just, as questions come up, if you want to put those in the chat, we would love to see those. And feel free to introduce yourself. We're glad to have you here today. Would love to see your name and organization in the chat. So in addition to, you've recently heard from Erica, you're going to hear from Robert Glenski today, who is the National Appointments Project Director for United We. You also are going to hear from one of our appointees, Tori Peterson, about her experience as an appointee, and I know you'll enjoy that. And then I believe you'll hear from Steve Hill with the City of Oklahoma City at the end as well. So just a quick note about our opening song. It's really become an anthem for United We, and frankly a metaphor for us, because that was something that those women came together for the very first time in studio to film for one of our events. And it was just amazing to watch them work together and utilize those voices and their voices to make change. And that's really what we want to inspire you to do today, is to utilize your voice to make change and to advance Oklahoma City as a leader. So just want to share a little bit with you about United We before we get into the specifics of the Appointments Project. United We's mission is to advance all women's economic and civic leadership. So two sides of our mission. From the economic perspective, we do research, policy, and advocacy work to advance efforts such as pay equity, paid family leave, childcare, occupational licensing, and just other ways that we can reduce barriers for women. And then from the civic leadership perspective, our core program is the Appointments Project. And you're going to hear from Robert. We did some research that really revealed why weren't we seeing as many women in civic leadership. And so thus we launched the program and hope that it reduces barriers for women. And we've had more than 150 appointees across the country so far. So with that, I'm going to pass it to you, Robert, and take it away.
Thank you, Angie and Erica and Steve, for the partnership. We really are very fortunate to have such great partners in Oklahoma City. Angie, thank you for that introduction. We are thrilled to be here today to talk about the Appointments Project and to share how the Appointments Project can actually help benefit the city of Oklahoma City. On the next slide, you will actually see the research that Angie actually referred to. And I want to just spend a few seconds here, because this is really what drove the creation of the Appointments Project. The first round of research was in 2014 at the University of Kansas. And our organization just asked, why aren't more women involved in civic boards and commissions, and like what were their attitudes. And there were some significant learnings that came out of this. The first one was that women didn't know if they had the right level of expertise or knowledge. So their level of confidence wasn't probably as high as it should be as they felt it should be to apply. Interesting enough, the women in our survey and our research, they did want to be involved, but they were not being asked, which is still something we see today. Women also in our survey, that many of them are juggling many different roles and responsibilities, and they wanted to make sure that their time was being used efficiently. And last but not least, another learning that came out of this was the fact that women are looking for other women to support them. They're looking to help build upon confidence and knowing and having a sense of belonging. So it was this 2014 research that really kicked off the Appointments Project. And it was 5 years later, we did our second round of research. We went across the state line this time and went to the University of Missouri. And we just wanted to know, what are the benefits of women serving on these public boards and commissions? So after 5 years of the Appointments Project, we wanted to see what kind of benefits were being brought to the table. And interesting enough, there were three main points from this research. Number one, when more women are involved, it increases public trust in government. Number two, as I'm sure many of the women involved were thrilled this happened, that the boards actually became more efficient. And last but not least, the most important point of all was when more women were involved, the lives of the community residents improved, especially women lives and their families' lives. So it's this research that truly started out the Appointments Project. Let's take a quick look of what's going on at elected positions right now across the nation. And this is from the Center for American Women in Politics out of Rutgers University. And this is based on the November 2020 election. And this just gives you a sense. There's some good news here and maybe some not so good news here. But the good news here is that at the state and Congress level, we now have the highest amount of women participating in these important institutions. So progress is being made, elevating the women's voices in these important institutions. However, we still need a lot of work done when it comes to women of color. And you can see right now, there's less than 10% of women of color in the US Congress. So that just gives you a kind of a nationwide look on what's going on in elected office. But we'd like to level set a little bit when it comes specifically to what we're going to talk about today, which is civic leadership. I say the word level set because we will use this term a lot, and I just really want to stress what we're talking about. We are talking about appointed boards and commissions at the government and public level. United We is extremely and fully supportive of all the efforts that are going on to increase more women's participation in corporate boards, private boards, and nonprofit boards. But when you hear the Appointments Project, you need to think about appointed positions in government and in the government in public local communities. These are volunteer positions, and I think the Callahan research from 2007 really pointed out the fact that these appointed boards and commissions represent a primary means for citizens' participation. Why is it important to have more women at the table? Because these boards and commissions are where decisions are being made that will make the city perform better and actually makes the city run. So the better representative they are of the community, the better they operate. Before we go on to, we will get questions. What's the difference between a board, a commission, and in Oklahoma City, you'll hear the word trust. So a board, think of a board as a group that is seen or following through on a city charter or an ordinance. A commission typically has a direct duties of some type that they need to perform. And a trust really oversees the management of an organization. In Oklahoma City, a good example of this is the Airport Trust of Oklahoma City, which oversees the operations of the airports. As Angie said earlier, and I'm happy to repeat, today, since the launch of the Appointments Project, we have facilitated over 150 appointments, and we continue to grow. As you can see, we currently have 34% of our registrants are women of color, and when it comes to appointees, 18% of our appointees to date have been women of color. This is some of our recent data that's come out of our database research, but this is and remains one of our key areas of focus as we move forward with the appointments project. We are happy with our success to date. We've increased women's voices at the table, we've removed barriers, and we've also increased women's participation in civic leadership. We want to build upon these initial efforts, but we really want to grow and build upon what we've done, mostly Missouri and Kansas, as we go across the United States. And today, as you can see, we're going to go through a very simple process of how do you get involved with the appointments project and apply for Oklahoma City boards and commissions. But first, I want to say, we hope today you see this webinar as your invitation. This is your invitation to get involved, your invitation to put your name in the hat and see what you can bring your skill sets to a board and commission. As you can see, we're going to take a real quick glimpse of this before we get into more detail. But really, the first step is to register with the appointments project. The next step is to actually apply with the city of Oklahoma City. They make it very simple, by the way. We ask you to stay connected after you've done those things, and then watch us as we celebrate the multiple appointments that are going on across the nation. But before we get into more detail, we are very fortunate, as Angie said, to have one of our appointees with us today, Tori Peterson. Tori is an appointee in Kansas City, Missouri from 2019. And she's going to talk about her journey, why she got involved, a little bit about her background, and she's gracious enough to stay with us to talk or to answer any questions you might have as the Q&A, as we host the Q&A portion. Tori is an associate attorney at Shook, Hardy & Bacon. She specializes in pharmaceutical and medical device product liability litigation. To do this job, I actually found out that she attended the mini medical school at the Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis, which tells you she's probably a pretty good person to have around if you've got some questions about healthcare. I'm also thinking maybe she probably took STEM to the next level with going to mini medical school, but congratulations on that accomplishment, Tori. Tori also attended K-State University, and she got her law degree from the St. Louis University of Law, where she was actually named the Student of the Year. In 2019, the Kansas City, Missouri Mayor's Office tapped her to be on the Liquor Control Board of Review. So, Tori, we'd love to hear your story.
Thanks, Robert. Hey, everyone. I'm so excited to be here with you all today and to share a little bit of my experience through United We, the Appointments Project, and share my experience serving on one of the Kansas City boards and answer any questions you guys have for me. I'm an open book and happy to help your guys' journey in any way. To provide just a little bit of background, I'm from a really small town in Kansas. I basically grew up on a farm, come from a family of farmers. No one in my family went to any type of professional school or anything. And when I went to undergrad, I originally wanted to be a doctor until I realized how much school it was going to be. Then I decided it was a no for me and switched on over and decided to go to law school. So I went to St. Louis University, like Robert said. I had an awesome experience there, but I knew I wanted to be closer to the farm. And so did my job search in Kansas City and wound up at a firm called Shook, Hardy & Bacon here in town. We do not have an Oklahoma City office, but I am headed down there next month for a deposition. If anyone's in town and wants to grab a coffee, I'll be there. But the law firm that I work for, we're a relatively large law firm. And so we often bring in, guest speakers or organizations and do kind of like lunchtime events, which is how I found out about United We. Is they were invited in and they did a presentation at my organization, something very similar to what's going on today. And this is exactly where I was, 3 years ago, 3 years ago, I think, when I had this presentation and I was sitting, just in a reverse role, and I learned all about United We. I immediately was so passionate about the organization because I am very passionate about women's rights, women's equality, and just promoting other women, singing their praises, cheering them on. That's one of my favorite things to do. I think that we can all use more of that in all of our professional settings and friend settings. So I learned about the Appointments Project. I was like, I need to do this. I want to apply. Kind of Robert, he talked about the reasons, we women often don't get involved in boards and commissions. Those certainly applied to me. My biggest thing was no one's ever asked me, why would I apply? And so, they kind of made an ask to us, which I'm sure is going to happen today, or I'll extend it now. Like, everyone, this is your ask to get involved in a board of commission in Oklahoma City. And so I, right after the presentation like this, I got on to the Appointments Project website, submitted my application. I then got on to the Kansas City, Missouri website, which I think Steve is going to walk through the Oklahoma City one today, and started looking at what were the different boards and commissions, what was I interested in, did any of them have any particular, qualifications or expertise that my background would assist in. And so I found a couple, one that needed an attorney to serve on the board. And so I was like, oh, well, this is great. I am that. I can serve as that person. And so I picked I picked 3 that I was interested in serving on. And I submitted my application. I was pumped. And then I just waited. I didn't hear anything for about a year. So I share that just to say the process, I think, can take, sometimes I think it can be immediate, but it can, in my experience, it took about a year. But then the Kansas City, City of Kansas City contacted me and asked me if I was still interested in one of the 3 boards I applied for, which in this case was the Kansas City Liquor Board Control of Review, which we're basically an appellate board that serves any issues with like liquor license in town or anything with restaurants that serve alcohol. If there are any issues that there's something going on in those restaurants or bars want to appeal those issues, that's the board that I sit on, and we handle those issues. And I've been serving on it now for over 2 years. We have actually a hearing next Tuesday. And it's been an awesome experience. I've been able to meet new people in the city, people outside of my network. I've been able to learn a lot. I've been able to grow a lot. And more than anything, I had just moved to Kansas City when I applied through the Appointments Project, and I didn't know much about the city. And it's been a really good way to, what I feel like is to integrate myself in the community and make a difference. So I'm happy to, there's going to be a Q&A. I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have about, my experience, the process, the time commitment I've served, anything that you guys want to hear about, just let me know. And I'm happy. I'm just more than anything happy to be here with you all. So.
Thank you, Tori. That's great. Very inspirational. And we hear these stories a lot about, just as I say, you threw your name, your hat in a ring, and it takes a little bit of time, but it does. And it turned out to be very rewarding. Great story. Thanks for your willingness to stay involved. And it looks like you've already got a couple people who are going to take you up on your visit to Oklahoma City. I'm not sure that they want to be part of the deposition, but maybe a coffee or something like that. So congrats on that. As Tori said earlier, no one was asking me, well, today, I hope you see this webinar as you're being asked, because this is your invitation. We believe you're ready. We believe you're qualified, and we really want you to apply today to the Appointments Project and then take it from there. Again, as we go through the rest of this presentation, we do have a Q&A at the end. If you want to first give a shout out that you're online with us, that's great. But any questions you have, please put them into the chat. As I said earlier, it's a simple process to apply for the Appointments Project. And you can either go to united-we.org or you can Google Appointments Project. We pop right up and you can register. The registration is a pretty simple process. There's only 3 parts to it. The first part is about your work and professional background. Second part gets more into your areas of interest and even boards and commissions you might be interested in. To learn more about, or even to put your name in the hat to apply for those. The third part of our application or registration really is about specific skill sets and experiences you might have. Like Tori's point of view, or her story, she shared, they were looking for an attorney. So that type of information can be helpful to Oklahoma City as they're looking to fill vacancies. One important step as you register with the Appointments Project that's often overlooked is actually attaching a current resume. So please attach a resume. We'll talk a little bit more about this in a little bit, about the importance of the resume, but that step is often forgotten. So please do that. By being registered with the Appointments Project, we'll keep you up to date on what we have going on, any educational programs we can make you aware of. We will do that. But as soon as you sign up, we will actually send you our candidate toolkit. And the candidate toolkit, look at it as a great resource for you as you go through your journey. We have a fact sheet actually about the Appointments Project process. We have frequently asked questions, and then we actually share a little bit about our research, and we have another one of our appointees share a little bit about a little call out about her experience. So it's a great way to have a little resource as you go through the various different steps in your journey to become part of Oklahoma City's board or commission. After you receive the toolkit, the next step that we believe is for you to go to Oklahoma City's website, and they have a page dedicated to boards, trusts, and commissions. Like I said, they made it very simple. This is a great kind of everything you'd want to know about all the various boards, trusts, and commissions that are operating. Right now, Oklahoma City has roughly about 800 citizens involved, and roughly about 150 boards, commissions, or trusts, or even committees that are up and running. Again, these are needed to truly make the city run the most efficiently it can for its residents. This actually, that page will give you any information you want to know before you go to this step, which is actually the step to actually apply for boards and commissions. Again, hats off to Steve and his team in Oklahoma City. It's a simple application again, but it's important you do both steps. Register with the Appointments Project, then you register with the city. The Oklahoma City application is roughly 2 pages. It's background information, some professional information about yourself, and then another part about experiences and skills. Again, important to attach the resume here because they will use your resume, your current resume, as they review all the various different candidates that are have basically put their name in the hat for a vacancy. One other thing about Oklahoma City is it's important to also realize that at the end of every year, they actually will clean out their application database. So at the beginning of every year, if you're still interested in keeping your name in the hat and applying for those boards and commissions, you will need to reapply at that time. Next step after you've done that is really to stay connected to the Appointments Project. Several things we would like to just share as you stay connected to us. Number one is the candidate toolkit. As you review this, you meet with your mentors and your friends and you gain insights. You can go back to our application at any time and actually update your application. And I'll talk a little bit about that here in a second. But our application is updated as you update it. We keep it as current as possible. We also have a team at United We dedicated to the Appointments Project, and we're here to answer any questions. There will be times when questions will come up or additional information. We're here as a resource. We do want to clarify, though, the Appointments Project staff advocates for all women that are part of the Appointments Project. We don't endorse one woman over another when it comes to a decision that is actually going to be made by an elected official and or also a city staffer. So again, we help facilitate the process, but that final decision truly comes down to the elected official and also our city staffer possibly. One other thing to keep in mind about the appointments too is we talked about your areas of interest. It's important also that, and Tori alluded to this earlier, that you might need to pivot. That does take a little bit of time. Be prepared for that before you might get appointed. But you might find out that your first area of interest, there might not be an opening for a couple years. So instead of waiting, if you have other areas of interest, look at those vacancies and see if your skill set would apply there. So again, you might have to pivot. As I said earlier, we love to celebrate with the Appointments Project. We do this across our social media channels and our website. We love to help spread the word. Again, in supporting other women, making other women aware of the Appointments Project, endorsing them to take that first step. We use the celebrations to help keep the noise level high and to see the progress that is actually being made. So that's the simple process. in closing, we'd like to talk a little bit about, before we get to the Q&A, some of the benefits of serving on a board and commission. We've asked individuals like Tori, we've talked to many of our appointees, what's in it for them? And it's interesting, the points that come up over and over again. So we wanted to share those with you today. Number one is the leadership growth opportunity is available when you get involved in civic leadership. Number two is skill sets, both personal and career. You get the opportunity to develop additional skills. Also, Tori even said this, you actually broaden your professional network. This is very important. And if you're trying to build your network, the Appointments Project and appointment to a board or commission can help that. And last but not least, you make measurable impact on your community, which is really what the Appointments Project is about, is it's really the community benefits. As you can see here, when women serve, it improves the decision-making process on these boards and commissions. Women's involvement pretty much increases bipartisanship. We've also learned through research that women legislatures tend to be more focused and have an approach that's different than men, but focus a little bit more on issues related to women, such as maybe family leave or also equal pay. So it's important to have those voices at the table. And last but not least, diversity improves public trust. So it's these community benefits, it's the boards and commissions, they need to reflect the communities that they serve. And that's when you think about the Appointments Project, that's what we are all about. We asked you to stay connected to us. We've got a lot going on, as Angie said earlier. We are a growing organization that really focuses on issues impacting women and trying to increase the number of women serving on these boards and commissions. It's time now for our Q&A. We would love for you to shoot us any questions you might have, and we'll address those. You can come off of mute, or you can send them in the chat, and Angie and I will make sure that we address your questions. So Angie?
Thank you, Robert, for that great overview. And thank you, Tori, for your energy and passion to serve. We do want to take your questions, so please put those in the chat box, as Robert mentioned. But before we do, just want to welcome Steve Hill, who is Chief of Staff for Mayor Holt in Oklahoma City. And Steve, would you like to say a few words?
Sure, yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks to everyone who's participating in this webinar. And then on top of that, thank you to United We, the Appointments Project, and of course, Erica Lucas, one of my favorite people in all of Oklahoma City, for the work that you're doing here. Everything that Robert said was spot on, and answers the higher view of any questions you might have. But if you have specific questions, obviously I'm here to help. And I should point out too that under Mayor Holt, if you've been paying attention, you know that diversifying our boards and commissions has been a real priority here, and we're making great headway on it as well. Probably the most diverse set of boards and commissions the city's ever seen, and that diversity continues to grow under Mayor Holt's watch. So it's a good time. I can tell you this, like, the way boards and commissions are normally filled is that the elected official has a circle of friends and acquaintances, right? And they choose from those people and further ripples. We added the website opportunity for people to kind of blindly submit to serve on a board or commission. And the fact that you're participating in this program furthers your the opportunity that you're going to have to actually serve on a board or commission. Because when we see these come through, and I want to assure everyone, when you put something on the website, it doesn't fall into a wastebasket at the other end of the process. It actually, each one of the resumes lands on my desk as well as JD Baker's desk. JD helps us with boards and commissions here in the mayor's office. And so we do see all these, and now we know a lot of times with a board or a commission, you're kind of blindly asking someone to donate their time and energy for the greater good, right? And sometimes people do it for different reasons. Sometimes someone just wants to be on a board or commission to say, hey, I was on a board or commission. And then some people really want to get in there and roll up sleeves and do the work. And the good thing about this project is that everyone that participates in this, we know that you're falling in the latter camp, which is what ideally we'd like to have on our boards and commissions. You know, people that really are interested in policy and city government and getting things done. So again, I can't thank everyone enough for not only putting this program together, but also for all of you who have taken the time to join the webinar and hear what we have to say about it. And having said that, any questions I'm happy to answer.
Great. Steve, thank you so much. We've gotten a few questions in, and Angie and I will kind of go through these and make sure we're keeping our eye on this. But we had a question come in from Carrie, which is a common question. How can we know what specific board, commissions, and trusts are looking for in applicants? So you want to address what's specifically being looked for here?
Sure. Great question. I have a very bad answer for it. Right now, the website lists what boards and commissions there are, and I think in some cases it gives some kind of idea of what the requirements might be for those boards or commissions. But we don't have anything online that actually shows when terms are up. So I guess my counsel and advice there would be that terms are up on all the board. All the boards have basically staggered commissioners or board members on them. So at any given time, there's a good chance that there is either someone about to be, their term is about to come up, or will be doing so in the near future. The other wild card in this is sometimes situations for board members change and they decide that they can no longer, that it's not in their best interest or the city's best interest or they have a conflict or, something arises where they can't serve on a board or commission and so they're forced to step down. So we don't know when that's going to happen. So again, even if I gave you a list of when terms are up, that would help to a degree, but there's also terms that show up without any real warning. So my advice would be if there's an area of interest to you, to put that, the website allows you to put in, what boards or commissions you're interested in, just do that. And then as these positions come open, we will, we'll draw from that pile of resumes and there's a chance that you could serve on the board or commission you're interested in. As Robert said, prepare to pivot, because if you looked at just briefly as he was scrolling through there, the first one is the Airport Trust. And so that's a board that's, kind of sexy and people would like to be on that. The next board, Alarm Review Board, maybe not so much, right? But we still need commissioners for that. So, so put your 2 or 3 or 4 top choices, and that just improves your odds of landing on something. And then it's just like anything else in life, people get noticed when they do good work, right? So if you're on the alarm board commission and someone says, boy, that person's really sharp, there's a pretty good chance you're gonna move to a more attractive board or commission. So hopefully that helps with that answer.
That's great. Thanks, Steve. I think that answered Deborah's question as well. But let me know, Deborah, if you have an additional question. Lexi is asking, what is the typical time commitment for a board, commission, or trust? So maybe Steve and Tori could probably shed some light on this too.
Yeah, Tori, why don't you go first?
Sure. Yeah. So I think that probably what Steve is going to say is that it probably depends on the board or commission that you get appointed to and the time commitment. But I'll tell you, in my experience, my board meets anywhere from 2 times a year to, I think the most we have ever met is 7 times a year in 1 year. And so it's not even a once a month commitment. When we have our hearings, they're normally between a half day or a full day. But what is nice is our board all works together. So when there's something that needs to be done during, the business day, we all have just an email chain that we communicate back and forth, figuring out a day and time that works for everyone. And then we need to have a quorum. So not even if there's one person that can't make that time work, as long as we have a quorum, then we can go ahead and proceed forward. I was intimidated just personally that maybe the time commitment was going to be like once a week, once maybe every other week for a couple hours, which does, as any, a working professional, a mom, both a working professional and a mom, that can get intimidating. But I'll tell you that in my experience, it has not been a big time commitment. And a lot of what we do, we're able to just even do over email, which is nice.
Yeah, I think Tori was spot on with all those answers. Most of the boards, I'm not going to say most of them, a lot of them meet monthly, once a month, and it's an hour to 2 hour long meeting. And then there's various subcommittees, and in that since a lot of times you can get as involved as you have the time and capacity for outside of the established meetings. I will say that if someone agrees to be on a board or commission, we sure do appreciate it when they actually do show up for the scheduled meetings, for a couple of reasons. One, because that shows that you continue to be interested and involved. And two, because as Tori pointed out, meetings have quorum issues. And if you don't have the proper amount of people showing up for the meetings, there's a chance, and this has happened to us, where you have to cancel the meeting. And then whatever they were supposed to be overseeing doesn't get done for another month. And that's not the best way to do things, right? So yeah, so the commitment's not onerous, but it is a commitment.
Thanks, Steve. This is another question for you probably. Are there geographic limitations or residency requirements for joining a board or commission?
Sure, excellent question. There are on some boards and commissions and some are not. Our preference would be that, Oklahoma City's big enough at 620 square miles that if we can get someone inside the city limits, that's probably going to be our preference. But there are some boards that actually call for someone who doesn't live in the city. So every board is a little bit different in that regard. I would say as a general rule of thumb, most boards prefer Oklahoma City residency, but not all of them.
Great. And here's a great question from Lexi. Are there any conflicts of interest or potential conflicts of interest that we should think about when applying?
There are. Yeah, that shows up, and in some ways it's manageable and sometimes it's not. If your company, like if you own a company, and if you own a company that directly has some kind of financial interest in the area over which you're, on a board or commission, you probably have to step down for that board or commission. If you have a lesser conflict, then generally all that's required is you would recuse yourself from a vote. So that's kind of the baseline for that question, but kind of how things work.
Another question we had, and this, Steve, would love your input. And then also, I think this, Tori, your input would be very valuable too. And question was, do you need any previous board or commission experiences or any board experiences at all to be considered?
Yeah, you do not. I mean, there are some boards that require some kind of may require professional experience in some area. But as far as just the mechanics of serving on a board or commission, not at all. The city actually offers training for new board members and commissioners. So as far as getting up to speed on, what the Robert's Rules of Order or, whatever the mechanics of the commission are, that's easily done and doesn't require any previous knowledge.
Tori, love to get your take on that too.
In my experience, no previous experience. I am, I will be vulnerable here and tell you, I was really intimidated before my first meeting because I'd never done it before. I did not know what Robert's Rules of Order are. I'm still not entirely sure. But I was really nervous going into my first meeting because it's just intimidating. At least I get intimidated when I've never done something and don't know really what it looks like. But I'll tell you that after the first meeting, it's like you look to your left and you look to your right, and it's like people that are just like you who also do not have a master's degree in boards and commissions. They are just community members wanting to, improve their community and working together. And it was, it's just like a very grounding experience that it's like, okay, we're all here, we're all just doing our best. And so I'll just share that at least if you guys, get involved or get appointed, you still might be nervous walking into your first meeting, but just know that it's actually like everyone's just helping each other out. And that was really reassuring for me. And Lexi, I'm going to just go back to your question about the conflicts. I'll just share in my experience. Every time we have a hearing, I have to submit a conflicts because my law firm in town might represent the bar restaurant, or we might have lawsuits against them. And so, that can be if you work at a law firm, or if you're at an advertising firm or media marketing firm, or all different, when you guys have clients in town. In my experience, it hasn't been an issue. I just make sure I send a conflicts check every single time.
That's a commonly asked question we get. And Steve and Tori, thanks for addressing that. I have another question that's come in from Hannah, which again, Steve and Tori, you guys are tag teaming everyone. We're going to ask you to do it again here. So is there a particular board or commission or trust that is better to that you would recommend applying for as an emerging profession with only a few years of professional experience? Steve, I think you can address that from the city. And Tori, that kind of sounds like your journey.
Yeah, I can't think of a specific board or commission that I would recommend for, people new to being on boards or commissions or new in their career life. They all have a benefit. And again, like I said, the alarm committee is probably less desirable than the arts commission or some of our human rights commissions or areas where you might feel a little more passionately, but all of them they're there for a reason. They all serve a function, and I always believe that you can distinguish yourself in any setting. So I guess that's how I view it.
Tori, any thoughts on that from your experiences?
I'm not quite as familiar with all of the boards available in Oklahoma City, so I probably can't give an actual recommendation, but I will tell you that I would recommend when you apply to really read through all of the descriptions. And I say this because I'm super passionate about children, and I love working with kids. And there was a board in Kansas City that was some sort of children's, I don't know what the board is called, but it had something to do with children. And I was like, great, this is a passion of mine. I don't really have an expertise, but it's certainly a passion and something I want to get involved in the city. And then I was listing it to apply until I read the description and realized it was for our high school students in Kansas City to be a part of. So I would just encourage you all to read the descriptions and to see, whether it's what you maybe went to school for, maybe it's your just expertise. I also grew up with an ag background. I do not work in any sort of agricultural field, but I have that background. So I also looked at boards where I felt like my just growing up background could be relevant and applicable in the city. So, I mean, what Robert said, we all have really cool, experiences and insight, and all of them are valuable in different ways. So I would find something that you are passionate about, that you want to serve in.
Tori, another question for you is kind of what we talked about towards the end of the webinar, but I'd just like to hear from you some of the benefits from serving. This question comes in a lot. So I'm giving up my time, I'm giving up, taking on more responsibility. What's the rewards? And we'd love to hear from your perspective as an appointee.
I mean, I'll tell you that, when I applied, I think I said this, I was brand new to the city. I didn't know anyone except my brother when I moved here. So I didn't really have a network of, just even friends for that matter, but certainly any sort of professional network either. And so it was a good way to just start to get involved in Kansas City. But to me, it was just meeting people in different industries with different backgrounds. That's really important to me. I personally do not want to be friends and networked with only lawyers. I don't know who does, but just getting to know different people in town. And that has certainly been very important to me. I've built friendships there. I recently, had just a Zoom coffee date with someone on the board just to catch up, and those kind of, network or those types of relationships I would never have met had I not been involved, or don't think I would have. So that has, that's been a big thing. And then I think it's just been learning about the city. I grew up in a town of 700 people. Kansas City is a big city to me, and learning about the fact that there are so many boards and commissions and what they do and why they exist has been just a very big educational experience for me as well.
Hey, Robert, if I could throw something in that mix,
please.
Too. So I have a background to a degree in some art related stuff, and so I'm a member of Oklahoma City's Arts Commission, and it can be very rewarding because the things that you that's a recommending body, and so the things that we've recommended have been built around town, and just touting Oklahoma City. Just last week, USA Today named us the top city in America for public art. A lot of that,
gosh,
yeah, a lot of it due to our mural scene. And so I know, as someone has been sitting on the Arts Commission for some time now, that you take a degree of satisfaction from what you've been able to accomplish there, because murals are a little bit temporary, but some of the bigger pieces of art around town, public art, that it'll be there for decades. and you were in a position where you were able to have a say on what that might have looked like or what artists might have been considered. So yeah, it's very rewarding to serve on a board or commission.
That's great. Well, congratulations to all of you in Oklahoma City. That's a tremendous accomplishment. So hats off there for sure. Steve, another question kind of gets to a little bit about, I'm going to tie it together with a fact that we've learned through our research. And our research points that we need to make more women aware of these opportunities. And one of the things I think you talked about at the last webinar, and I don't think you mentioned, if you did, I missed it, I apologize, but I'd like for you to address the thoughts you had about certain areas of the city needing more representation. The last webinar, this got brought up, and I thought it was a really excellent point you made. So any comment about getting the word out to the entire area of Oklahoma City would be great.
Sure. I think everyone, no surprise to anyone here that if you look historically at Oklahoma City's boards and commissions, you would rightly assume that they were largely comprised of white males. Now we're doing everything in our power to make sure that that is not the case anymore. But the one stat that'll sneak up on you and kind of surprise you is that historically and to a degree currently, a huge percentage of our boards and commissioners, whether they be male, female, or regardless of ethnicity, are all from North Oklahoma City. So that's half the city, right? We have another half of our city that is woefully underrepresented and cutting across every kind of, again, gender and ethnicity. So keep in mind that as we work to diversify our boards, part of that diversity is also geographic diversity. That if Northeast Oklahoma City is underrepresented or the entire south side of the city is underrepresented, we have to do something about that because those are our residents and everyone gets a say in how the city grows and develops. So I think that may be what Robert was alluding to in his question, that diversity comes in many forms. And while we sit back maybe sometimes and pat ourselves on the back thinking, boy, this board looks great, what you don't see is every member of that board is from, a certain part of town. So that's also something we need to work on as we move forward on this. And again, this project helps us do just that as it expands our reach into pools we might not have had access to before.
Well, great. And Steve, that's correct. I thought that was an excellent point in our last Oklahoma City webinar that was made. And it kind of gets to the research. We just got to get the word out. Either north or south, wherever you might be, diversity comes in many different forms. Couple last just little comments to make as we're wrapping up the Q&A here. Both Tori and Steve addressed this, that it might take a little bit of time. So if you once you put in your application, don't get frustrated if you don't hear back immediately. It does take some time. Some of it, as Steve alluded to, it depends on the vacancies. And that's where Tori even commented about other areas of interest she has, because that's a very important part of this. You might have to pivot when you would like to serve. So keep that in mind. With that, I think we are out of any last questions. Oh, Erica's got her hand raised. Erica.
Thank you so much, Robert. Angie, if I don't say this to Steve, I'm going to be thinking about it until I have a drink later today. So I forgot to say thank you to Steve and for all the women in the room. Let me just tell you that it was Steve who brought United We Invest together. And we need more men like Steve, like Robert, because to create more equitable workplaces and economies, that's not just a women's issue, that's an everybody's issue, and it benefits everyone, including man, non-gender, however people identified. So I just want to give a huge shout out to Steve. Thank you for doing the work behind doors when nobody sees it and nobody gives credit. Thank you for connecting people, doing the work. And we were really, especially myself, I appreciate you. I owe you a beer or a drink or whatever. Let's make that happen. And then Tori, when you come over, totally game for it. And thank you. I see so many beautiful faces. I am so glad that you're putting your name out there. Thank you for saying yes, and hope to see your applications come through. Thank you.
Yeah, Erica, thank you for that. And Steve, you're lucky you're on the beer list with Erica. So that's a great accomplishment for one participation in the webinar. So, but we do know you're doing a lot behind the scenes. We want to thank both Steve and Erica for the partnership. We couldn't have brought Appointments Project to Oklahoma City without them. Also to Tori, thank you, Tori, for your inspirational story. And I know you've been willing to take questions from anyone and address anything. So please reach out to Tori if you'd like to learn more about it. We're going to close again with a video. And during the video, we'll pop up a survey that we would love to ask you to fill out for us. With that, we're going to say goodbye and wish you all a great day.